Oh, happy Sunday. So I'm going to make some vegetable soup today, and I use a third of a cup of soy, third of a cup of Worcestershire. I'm going to use some minced onions, and I usually do about 3 of these capfuls. I like a lot in there. I'm out of garlic, or jarlic, either one I'm out of. I got to pick it up. So I dump it in my stew pot like this. I add salt and pepper, probably a teaspoon and a half of salt, maybe a little less than a teaspoon of pepper. In my meat, I have a pound of beef stew meat cooking, and I put onion and garlic and salt and pepper and Worcestershire and soy, and I cook it in here like that, and I bring it to a boil and get it done. Now, I won't use a whole pound of meat in my stew pot. I'll only use a half a pound. And then over here you can see I use veg-oil, and I'll use 2 cans of that. I put a whole can of sweet corn. This is the great value. Usually I get Libby's, but the whole kernel, the sweet corn. I put a tomato sauce and a diced tomato. If I have leftover roast and stuff, I'll use the stuff that's in there. So then in the other pot, because my husband has alpha-gal, and excuse the mess in my kitchen, I'm trying to put up stuff and I've got to still have a bummed hand, but I'm going to make him some, and I'm going to use some leftover pork roast that we had, or pork loin. I'm going to do 1 can of that, the corn, the tomato sauce. I'll put a few diced tomatoes in there for him. He doesn't like as many in there. And cook that. I'll bring the broth from that leftover roast and cook it. And drain the mixed vegetables. But can you see the consistency of the pork roast? That right there is what I put in his. Mine will have the beef. And I use the broth that was from the roast as well. But I don't drain the corn. I put the juice from the sweet corn in the pots as well. After it's cooked, I cut it little instead of leaving it in big pieces like that. And I take half the juice, I dump half of the broth in my soup. The other half I'll freeze for another pot. Anyway, I gotta let it cook for about an hour and a half, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Have a great Sunday.